The sound of a chain snapping open broke the silence. The heavy basement door creaked as dim light spilled into the small, windowless room. A woman, pale and shaking, looked up toward the stairs where footsteps echoed. She had been locked inside this house for over 10 years, trapped behind thick doors and nailed windows. Her name was Amanda Berry, and she was about to do something she had dreamed of every single day: escape. Her heart pounded so hard she could barely breathe. From outside, faint sounds of children laughing in the distance floated through the cracks of the old walls. It had been years since she'd heard the world like this. The man who kept her here, Ariel Castro, had left in a hurry that morning. He had forgotten to lock one of the interior doors completely. Amanda pulled the chain again, testing it. The lock gave way just enough for her to force it open with all her strength. She pushed the wooden door, her hands trembling. "Please," she whispered to herself, "please let this be real." The hallway was empty, but every creak of the floorboards made her freeze. She could almost hear Castro's voice in her head, warning her, threatening her. She tiptoed toward the front of the house, her heart racing. The living room windows were boarded up, but she could see faint sunlight between the cracks. She saw the front door. It was locked, but part of the lower panel was broken. If she could kick it out, maybe she could scream for help. She hesitated for a moment, afraid. What if he came back? What if this was another cruel trick? But then, from one of the back rooms, she heard a faint cry, a small girl's voice. "Mommy?" Amanda turned back. Her daughter, Jocelyn, was awake. "Stay quiet, baby," she whispered. "We're leaving." Amanda kicked the lower panel of the front door hard. Once, twice, 3 times, until a piece cracked away. Bright daylight burst through the hole. She pushed her face toward it and screamed, "Help! Help me! I'm Amanda Berry." Her voice was hoarse, desperate. From outside, she heard footsteps stop, then a man's startled voice. "Hold on. I'm calling the police." Tears filled her eyes as she looked at the sunlight pouring in. This was her chance. After more than a decade in a house of nightmares, she might finally be free. But before she could reach her daughter, the sound of tires screeching came from outside. Her heart dropped. He was back. The story of how Amanda Berry, Gina DeJesus, and Michelle Knight ended up trapped in Ariel Castro's house began years earlier, on ordinary Cleveland streets. Amanda was just 17 when she disappeared in 2003. She had left her fast food job early one evening and was walking home, talking to her sister on the phone. "I'll see you soon," she said, but she never arrived. At the same time, another girl, Gina, only 14, was last seen walking home from school. Their families searched for months, putting up posters and begging for answers. But the city moved on, and people began to lose hope. Castro lived just a few miles away. He was a school bus driver, friendly to neighbors, known for his loud music and small talk. Nobody imagined that inside his 2-story house on Seymour Avenue, he had built a prison, a place of fear, control, and silence. The rooms were sealed with padlocks and heavy doors. Windows were covered with boards from the inside. In one room, a television played cartoons all day long to drown out noise. He brought food at random times, sometimes yelling, sometimes pretending to be kind. Michelle Knight had been the first to go missing, long before the others. She had trusted him for a ride, not knowing she would never leave his house again. Over the years, the 3 women grew close, whispering through walls, sharing strength when they thought they couldn't survive another day. Each day was the same: darkness, fear, waiting. Then there were moments when Castro would vanish for hours, sometimes days, leaving them in silence, locked inside. That silence became both a blessing and a curse. Peace for a few hours, but also the echo of their own thoughts. On one of those quiet days, Amanda began to plan. She didn't know how or when, but she promised herself that if she ever got one chance, she would take it. And now, that chance had come, and he was back before she could escape. The front door still hung half-broken. Amanda froze as the sound of keys jingled outside. Jocelyn clung to her leg, whispering, "Mommy, is it him?" The doorknob began to turn. The chain above rattled. Amanda grabbed her daughter, backing away slowly, every heartbeat louder than the last. Then, from the other side of the door, a man's voice shouted, "Police! We're here!" But before she could react, another sound crashed through the house. The slam of a back door opening. Someone else was inside. Amanda froze, clutching her daughter tight. The sound of the back door slamming echoed through the small house. Heavy footsteps followed, slow and deliberate. She could hear muffled voices outside, the police shouting commands. But whoever was inside was moving closer. "Stay down," she whispered, pulling Jocelyn behind the couch. Her hands shook so hard she could barely keep quiet. The footsteps stopped, then started again, closer this time. Then a loud bang. The front door burst open. Police officers flooded in, their flashlights slicing through the dim, smoky air. "Cleveland Police, show your hands." Amanda stood up slowly, crying, "I'm Amanda Berry. Please help me." The officer's flashlight hit her face, and for a moment there was only stunned silence. Then the radio crackled. "We found her. We found Amanda Berry. She's alive." Tears streamed down her cheeks as another officer pulled her and Jocelyn into the daylight. The neighborhood erupted. People ran out of their houses, clapping, shouting, crying. Cameras flashed. After 10 years in darkness, Amanda Berry was finally free. But inside that old house, 2 more women still waited for someone to open their doors. As officers searched the house, they found locked doors sealed with chains and padlocks. Behind one of them was Gina DeJesus, trembling and speechless. Behind another was Michelle Knight, her face pale but calm, as if she had been waiting for this moment forever. When the officers carried them out, neighbors could hardly believe it. The missing girls they'd given up on, the ones whose posters had faded away years ago, were right there, alive. And Ariel Castro? He was caught just hours later, standing silently as police handcuffed him in front of his own car. His face showed no emotion, no guilt, just the same cold stare he'd used to control his victims for over a decade. The city of Cleveland didn't sleep that night. News cameras lined the streets. Reporters crowded near the yellow police tape. People shouted, "We're so glad they're home," but none of them truly understood what those women had survived. In the following days, the truth came out, a truth darker than anyone imagined. Inside Castro's house, police found rooms with bolted doors, heavy chains, and small mattresses on the floor. There were ropes, locks, and an old radio playing softly in the background. The windows had been sealed from the inside, so no sound could escape. In one corner, officers found children's toys, proof of the life Amanda had tried to give her daughter even in captivity. A worn-out coloring book lay open on the floor beside a small doll missing its arm. For years, Castro had lived a double life. He had gone to barbecues, talked to neighbors, and played music at parties. No one suspected a thing. He even joined in community searches for the missing girls he was hiding in his own home. The survivors were taken to hospital, where doctors said it was a miracle they were alive. They had lost years, memories, and pieces of themselves. But somehow they still had hope. When Amanda saw her family again, her mother burst into tears. "I knew you were alive," she said, holding her daughter tightly. The cameras captured that moment, a mix of joy and heartbreak. Meanwhile, the police began piecing together what had really happened inside that house. They learned that each woman had been kidnapped in the same way. Castro offered them a ride, then locked the doors and took them to his home, where he began years of manipulation and control. He used fear to keep them silent, convincing them no one would come for them. The neighbors had heard noises over the years, screams, knocks, strange sounds, but Castro always had an excuse. He told them it was just his family or the TV. When he finally stood before a judge, Castro faced hundreds of charges: kidnapping, assault, and more. The courtroom was packed. Amanda, Gina, and Michelle all sat silently, holding hands. The judge read the charges one by one, his voice echoing. Castro didn't look at them. He just stared at the floor. When it was his turn to speak, he tried to defend himself, claiming he wasn't a monster, that they lived with me willingly. The courtroom gasped. Amanda stood up, her voice shaking. "You took 10 years of my life. 10 years I can never get back. You are a coward. For the first time, Castro looked away. The judge sentenced him to life in prison, plus 1,000 years. There would be no freedom for him. Ever. But even behind bars, he didn't last long. Just a month later, guards found him hanging in his cell. He had taken his own life, leaving behind nothing but questions and the memories of the horrors he caused. When the news broke, the survivors stayed quiet. They didn't celebrate his death. They had already survived him once. That was victory enough. But even as they tried to rebuild their lives, one question lingered in Amanda's mind. What if someone else out there, someone quiet and smiling like Castro, was doing the same thing right now? That thought haunted her, especially when she woke up one night to the sound of knocking on her door. It was faint, steady, like someone was trying not to be heard. She froze, staring toward the sound. The knocking came again. Amanda's heart skipped a beat. The knocking grew louder, 3 slow taps on the front door. For a moment, she couldn't move. The memories of Seymour Avenue flashed before her eyes. The locked doors, the chains, the endless nights of fear. "Mom!" Jocelyn's small voice broke the silence. She was standing in the hallway, rubbing her eyes. "Who's at the door?" Amanda forced a small smile, hiding the panic in her chest. "It's okay, baby. Stay back." She walked slowly toward the door, her hands trembling just like the night she escaped. Another knock, then a voice. "Amanda, it's Detective Ruiz. You can open up." She exhaled shakily and unlocked the door. The detective stood on her porch under the dim streetlight, holding a file. His expression was serious, the same look he had the night he helped rescue her. "I'm sorry to come by so late," he said, stepping inside. "But we found something you should see." He handed her a sealed envelope. Inside was a photograph, a dark, boarded-up house just 2 streets away from where she lived. Someone called in a noise complaint. Ruiz said quietly, "We went inside and found signs of confinement, locks, boards, chains." It looked familiar. Amanda's knees weakened. "You mean someone else?" He nodded. "We don't know yet. But whoever it was, they were copying everything Castro did." For a long moment, Amanda couldn't speak. Her house, her peace, her hard-won normal life. It all felt like it was slipping away again. "I can't go through this again," she whispered. Ruiz's voice softened. "You're not alone this time. You helped others survive. Amanda, you helped change laws, improve how police handle missing cases. Because of you, someone out there might be saved." His words hung in the air, but the fear inside her didn't fade. That night, Amanda sat by the window after putting Jocelyn to bed. Outside, the street was quiet, the same kind of quiet she had once mistaken for safety. The moonlight cast long shadows across her living room. She stared at the picture of the boarded house again and thought of Gina and Michelle, the friends who had become her sisters. After their rescue, the 3 had stayed close for a while, but each took a different path. Gina returned to school and began working with families of missing children. Michelle started writing about their years in captivity, turning her pain into strength. Amanda had chosen a quieter life, raising her daughter, avoiding cameras, trying to heal. But the scars never really disappeared. Every loud sound made her jump. Every knock on the door made her heart race. The world saw her as a symbol of survival, but inside, she was still learning how to live again. Weeks passed after the detective's visit. The police investigated the new house, but no victims were found, just an abandoned building filled with broken furniture and locks that hadn't been used. Still, the discovery reopened wounds Amanda had tried to close. One evening, she decided to visit Gina and Michelle. They met at a quiet cafe in Cleveland, away from the reporters and old memories. Michelle smiled softly. "You look better," she said. Amanda nodded, trying to, "But every day still feels like I'm waiting for something bad to happen." Gina reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "You're not in that house anymore. You're free. Don't let him win again, not in your mind." Amanda looked down, tears welling up. "I just can't forget the sound of those doors locking. It's like it's still happening." Michelle leaned forward. "Then let's make new sounds. Real ones. Laughter. music, life. For the first time in years, Amanda smiled, a real smile. That night, as she drove home under the city lights, she rolled down her window and felt the wind on her face. The same streets that once haunted her now looked different. Shops were open, children were playing, people were laughing. Life had moved on. When she pulled into her driveway, she saw something small sitting on her porch, a single pink flower in a glass jar. No note, no name, just a flower. Amanda picked it up and smiled faintly. "Thank you," she whispered, not sure to whom. Maybe to the world, maybe to herself. She walked inside, kissed her daughter goodnight, and turned off the light. Outside, the city of Cleveland slept, unaware of the quiet miracle that had taken place in a small house years ago, a miracle born out of terror, pain, and courage. Inside the house of nightmares, Amanda Berry and the others had faced darkness most people couldn't imagine. But they didn't just survive, they lived. And even though the past would always follow them, they had finally learned something stronger than fear. Freedom can't erase the scars, but it can turn them into strength. And somewhere deep down, in the silence that once terrified her, Amanda finally found peace.